The hall was completely silent. Bright lights fell upon the blue mats, and the gleam of ice shimmered from the glass walls. This was Ikam Emuhida's International Martial Arts Academy in Tashkent, the capital city of Uzbekistan. Outside, light snow was falling through the cold winter air, while inside the atmosphere was thick with the scent of sweat and steel, the unmistakable smell of discipline and combat training. Flags from different nations hung proudly on the walls, representing the diverse warriors who had trained within these walls. Russia, Japan, Korea, the United States, each banner told a story of martial tradition. And in one corner, almost overlooked, hung the red, green, and gold flag of Burkina Faso. Beneath that very flag stood a man dressed in a simple uniform, standing in complete silence. His face carried a sense of peace, yet his eyes held the unmistakable gleam of determination and purpose. No one in that room knew that this was no ordinary soldier. This man was Ibrahim Traoré, the president of Burkina Faso. But today he had not come as a leader or head of state. He had come as a student, determined to present his nation's traditional martial art to the world. The instructor clapped his hands sharply, his voice echoing across the training hall. Today, each nation will demonstrate their martial art technique. This is not a competition, it is an exchange of honor and respect. First, the Russian team stepped forward and displayed their lightning-fast strikes and fluid movements, a masterclass in precision and power. Then the Japanese officer demonstrated the fierce punches and shouts of Kyokushin karate, each strike resonating with disciplined fury. Following them, the Korean officer earned applause with spectacular aerial kicks from Taekwondo, spinning through the air with graceful lethality. But in the next moment, the hall fell into a stunned silence. The door opened, and a young woman entered. She had long golden hair tied tightly back, eyes radiating self-confidence, and wore the uniform of the Uzbek military. She walked directly to the center of the hall and stood there, commanding the attention of everyone present. This was Sofia Karamova, a renowned officer in the Uzbek armed forces and champion of several international martial arts competitions. Her reputation preceded her, and her presence alone was enough to shift the energy in the room. She looked directly at Ibrahim Traoré, who stood quietly in his corner and spoke in a firm, challenging tone. "If you can defeat me in 5 moves, my destiny will be yours." Whispers erupted throughout the hall. Someone muttered, "Did she just challenge the president? This is madness." But Traoré simply smiled calmly and replied, "Destiny is not won through bets, but through intentions. However, if this is a matter of honor, then I accept." The bell rang. Sofia attacked swiftly, launching a powerful kick toward Traoré's chest. But he did not step back even an inch. He simply shifted his angle slightly, and Sofia's balance faltered. She nearly fell to the ground, but just before she touched the floor, Traoré gently caught her arm with remarkable grace. The instructor raised his finger. "First move." The hall held its breath collectively. Sofia looked up at him in astonishment. "You didn't use force, yet you stopped me. How?" Traoré smiled warmly. "The true beauty of strength lies in gentleness. What harms others is not strength, it is weakness." The second bell rang. This time, Sofia attacked with a combination of punches and knee strikes, moving with the fury of a trained warrior. But Traoré did not strike or block in the traditional sense. He merely changed his angle and position. Every attack lost its direction, its power dissipating harmlessly into the air around him. Finally, Sofia stepped back, breathing heavily. "You don't fight, yet you win." "I didn't come here to win," Traoré replied softly. "I came to explain a truth." A profound silence filled the hall. Everyone present realized that this was not a match between two bodies. It was a confrontation between two philosophies, two ways of seeing the world. Sofia spoke quietly, almost to herself. "If you truly defeat me, I will entrust my fate to you." Traoré lowered his gaze and spoke in a gentle tone. "Fate does not belong to anyone's possession, but if your heart changes, then fate itself becomes yours." The bell rang once more. Everyone in the hall sensed that something extraordinary was about to happen. This was not just a fight anymore. It was a test of two souls, a meeting of minds and spirits. And on that cold night in Tashkent, the world witnessed for the first time that Ibrahim Traoré was not merely a president. He was a warrior who could defeat his opponents with honor and respect, without diminishing their dignity. The day after the competition, snow continued to accumulate on the streets of Tashkent. But there was a different kind of coldness in the air now, the coldness of conspiracy, fear, and hidden danger lurking in the shadows. Traoré remained calm after the match, but a strange feeling had settled in his heart. Sofia Karamova's words, "My destiny is in your hands," kept echoing in his mind. Those words had not emerged from mere pride or stubbornness. There was something hidden within them, like a silent cry for help that only he could hear. That same evening, while reviewing files in a room at the United Academy's training center, there was a soft knock on the door. Sophia entered, but this time, the fierce self-confidence that had marked her earlier was gone. There were faint shadows under her eyes, and her voice trembled slightly. "President Traoré, I need to speak with you privately." Traoré looked up from his papers. "Here there is no president, only a soldier. Tell me what is troubling you." Sophia took a deep breath, gathering her courage. "This academy, it's not just a training center. A secret organization operates here, one that kidnaps trained military officers and sells them. They're used by private militias around the world. I've been gathering evidence against them, but they've captured my colleagues. Tomorrow it will be my turn." Traoré's eyes became sharp and focused. "Are you certain of this?" "More than certain. I was helping one of the gang's leaders before I discovered the truth of what they were doing." Traoré stood slowly, his military bearing evident despite his civilian clothes. "So you know their secrets from the inside?" "Yes, but now they want to eliminate me. They know I've turned against them." Traoré paused for a moment, considering the weight of what she had revealed. "Sophia, you yourself said that your destiny was in my hands. Perhaps that moment has now arrived." At that precise moment, the door burst open violently. Two Uzbek military officers entered with weapons drawn, their faces hard and emotionless. "Sofia Karamova, you are under arrest for the crime of revealing national secrets." Traoré immediately stepped between them and Sofia, his voice calm but commanding. "This accusation is false. This woman is serving her country with honor." One of the officers laughed mockingly. "And you, a foreign soldier, dare to interfere in our internal matters." A glint appeared in Traoré's eyes, not of anger, but of unwavering conviction. "I do not stand here under the command of any nation. I stand under the command of humanity itself." The officers handcuffed Sophia roughly. As they led her away, she turned back for just a moment, her eyes meeting Traoré's. "If I survive this, I will give you the file that contains the truth." Traoré nodded slowly, a silent promise passing between them. "I will find you, that is my vow." The night had grown deep and dark. On the snow-covered streets of Tashkent, a black car sped through the empty roads, carrying Sophia as a prisoner. Meanwhile, Traoré had secretly contacted his team. "One of our allies has been kidnapped. Find her location. This is not just about one woman, this is about humanity itself." Within a few hours, intelligence arrived. Sophia had been taken to an abandoned factory on the outskirts of the city, where an international gang had established their base of operations. Traoré immediately put on his uniform, took up weapons, and before departing said only this: "If I do not return from this night, tell the world that a soldier tried to save not an enemy, but the truth itself." This was the moment when the story transcended mere combat and entered the battlefield of truth versus conspiracy. The next scene would unfold in a snowy night, a dark factory, locked doors, and a woman bound inside. This was about to become the beginning of Ibrahim Traoré's most dangerous mission. On the outskirts of Tashkent lay an old industrial area covered in snow. Broken-down factories, silent machinery, and closed windows made it seem as if everything had died long ago. But Ibrahim Traoré knew that silence doesn't always hide truth. Sometimes it hides danger. He moved through the night shadows, along the edges of rooftops, approaching the factory compound. His footsteps in the snow formed briefly and then disappeared, as if he were a ghost moving through the winter night. With him were two loyal officers, Captain Morris and Sergeant Kaby, both old companions he trusted completely. Morris whispered quietly, "Sir, there are dozens of guards inside. This looks like a dangerous trap." Traoré smiled with confidence. "If they cannot see us, then we are not a threat to them. We are shadows, and shadows always attack from within the walls." The three of them reached the back section of the factory. The door was secured with chains, but Traoré silently picked the lock with practiced skill. As they entered, a strange smell rose to meet them. Oil, blood, and rust mixed together in a nauseating combination. In the darkness, dim electric lights flickered somewhere deep inside. Old posters hung on the walls proclaiming, G. Industrial Pride of Tashkent. And today, that very place had become a hub for human trafficking. In a corner, Sophia sat bound to a chair. Her face bore the marks of wounds, but there was no fear in her eyes, as if she knew someone was coming for her. Suddenly, a guard heard the sound of footsteps. Who's there? He turned on his flashlight, the beam cutting through the darkness. Traoré signaled his team to spread out with a hand gesture. In the next moment, a shot rang out. But before the sound had fully echoed, Traoré was already in motion. He spun backward, dropped to his knees, and with his elbow twisted the guard's leg, bringing him crashing to the ground. The gun fell from his hands. Two more guards rushed forward. Morris struck one down while KB knocked the second unconscious with a swift blow. Traoré quickly reached Sophia. Are you all right? Sophia managed a weak smile through her pain. I knew you would come. Traoré cut through the chains binding her. We can talk later. Right now we need to get out of here. But as they moved toward the exit, the lights suddenly blazed on overhead, flooding the factory floor with harsh illumination. On a steel platform above the machinery stood the gang leader, a tall figure in a black coat with a deep scar across his face. General Traoré, he laughed coldly. We had no idea that a country's president would walk directly into our trap. Now your story will also be sold on our market. Traoré looked directly into his eyes without flinching. I am not a president here. I am simply a soldier who came to defend the dignity of humanity. The leader snapped his fingers. Dozens of armed men descended from the catwalks above, surrounding them completely. Sophia whispered urgently, They have a drive containing the names of all the officers involved in this network. If it reaches the world, the entire system will collapse. A light of determination flashed in Traoré's eyes. Then we will risk our lives for that drive. Morris cocked his pistol. KB signaled with a piece of broken glass toward the roof, where a drone waited in position. Traoré whispered, This won't just be a firefight, this is the beginning of truth. The gang members began descending. Gunfire erupted, bullets ricocheting off walls and filling the air with the sound of combat. Sophia, hiding behind a table, said breathlessly, We're surrounded. From behind a wall, Traoré responded, No, we are not surrounded. We are the center. The game has already slipped from their hands. KB threw a grenade. An explosion rocked the building, smoke billowing out and filling the space. The factory's roof shook violently. In the smoke, Traoré grasped Sophia's hand, and together they ran toward the back door. Through the haze, they spotted the glowing drive lying on a table. Traoré grabbed it and declared, This is not just evidence, this is the key to justice. They had just made it outside when the back wall collapsed with a thunderous explosion. In the dust and smoke, only one shadow remained, the shadow of Traoré. Sophia screamed, Ibrahim, but her voice was swallowed by the smoke and chaos. Sophia Karamova was found outside the factory in a semi-conscious state. Her hands were stained with blood, but she kept repeating the same words over and over. He stayed inside. He went to save the file. The medical team rushed her to the hospital. When she regained some consciousness, the interrogation began. A senior investigator asked, Are you certain he's alive? Sophia closed her eyes and said softly, If anyone can defeat even death itself, it is Ibrahim Traoré. The news spread like wildfire across the globe. International media headlines became unified in their shock. President of Burkina Faso missing during secret mission in Tashkent, CNN. African leader disappears in Central Asia operation, BBC. Traoré hero or rogue, Al Jazeera. Everyone rushed to be first with the story. Some said he was killed. Others claimed he had been kidnapped. But within Burkina Faso itself, the atmosphere was completely different. The people poured into the streets. Markets closed, schools shut down, and everywhere the same chant echoed. Traoré is alive, Traoré will return. In the capital city of Ouagadougou, people stayed up all night in mosques and churches, praying for their leader's safe return. Children held small flags in the streets with pictures bearing the words, Our president is not just a leader, he is a protector. During this time, Burkina Faso's secret intelligence agency, the DSI, received a strange signal. From near the Uzbekistan border came an encrypted audio message, just 3 words. Alive! Mission continues. International investigations immediately began, but the Uzbek authorities adopted a disturbing silence. They released no factory videos, announced no arrests, provided no information. From her hospital bed, Sophia gave a statement. These weren't just traffickers and killers, these people are part of a network that sells military secrets. They have connections throughout Europe, Africa, and Asia, and they will not want Traoré to return alive. That same night, a masked figure appeared in Sophia's hospital room, entering silently through the window. In a soft voice, he said, "Stay quiet, they are listening." Sophia recoiled in fear. "Who are you?" "I am Traoré's man. He says the truth has not yet been extinguished." The man pressed a small USB drive into Sophia's trembling hand. "This is the same drive he took from the factory." Sophia's hands shook as she accepted it. "So, he's alive." "Yes, but he is now across the border, and to save the world he must now hide in the darkness." The next morning, a meeting was held at the United Nations headquarters. American and European representatives began making shocking accusations against Traoré. This president is not a leader, he is a threat. He is interfering in covert operations. But the African Union representative responded sharply. When justice falls silent, someone must rise to become its voice. Traoré is that voice. Meanwhile, Burkina Faso's military announced that the country's leadership would temporarily be assumed by the vice president. But officially, Traoré was not declared a martyr. An officer stated, "He is alive because a true soldier does not die as long as his ideology remains living." The world was telling stories of his bravery, but the real truth was that somewhere across the border, in some secret refuge, he was hiding and planning his next move. He knew this was no longer just about Uzbekistan. He now faced a global network. From her hospital window, Sophia watched the snow fall and whispered, "Now the war will be fought not just with weapons, but with truth, and I am ready for it." Approximately 300 kilometers from Tashkent, in a desolate border region, lay old tunnels, remnants from World War II. This was where Ibrahim Traoré was hiding. His face was covered with dirt and bore the marks of wounds, yet his eyes held even more strength than before. In the silence of night, only 2 people were with him. Captain Morris and a local Uzbek driver named Ali Jan, who was helping them survive and evade capture. In Traoré's hand was that small USB drive he had escaped with from the factory. It contained evidence that could shake the world's most powerful secret agencies. Emails, financial records, and videos showing how major countries' military contractors had been sending weapons and training to covert groups in African, Asian, and Eastern European territories. Captain Morris said cautiously, "Mr. President, if this file becomes public, those people will never let you live." Traoré replied in a low voice, "If truth is hidden, then a leader who lives is already dead. I do not want to die while living, Morris." He outlined his plan clearly. First, they needed to reach the United Nations secure server so this file could be uploaded and revealed to the world. But the path would not be easy. Every route was blocked. Uzbek intelligence, Russian agencies, and some Western contractors were all searching for him. They knew that if Traoré made this evidence public, many powerful faces would be exposed. In the black winds of night, Ali Jan began driving the 3 of them north toward the border in a small vehicle. Cold, snowy winds battered the windows. On the radio, news reports were playing. Operations continue against terrorists in northern Uzbekistan. Traoré smiled slightly. When a truth-teller emerges, the world begins calling him a terrorist. Suddenly, headlights appeared in the distance. An armored vehicle was following them. Morris said urgently, "They're pursuing us." Traoré remained calm. "We don't need to fear, we need to think. Is there an old tunnel nearby?" he asked Ali Jan. Ali Jan responded immediately, "Yes, there's a Russian-era tunnel ahead under the mountain, but it's very dangerous." "The danger is behind us," Traoré said. "Now we just need a path." The car turned sharply and plunged into the mountain's base. Behind them, the sound of gunfire erupted. Windows shattered into pieces, but Traoré's voice remained calm and steady. "Remember this, Morris," he said quietly. "The enemy's bullet fears you when it tries to kill you because it knows you stand for truth." Inside the tunnel, darkness was absolute. Ali Jan used his phone's light to guide them forward. After advancing some distance, they stopped the vehicle. Morris and Traoré turned back and threw two-hand grenades. The explosion caused the entrance to collapse, sealing them in but keeping them safe, at least temporarily. Traoré held the USB drive firmly and looked at Ali Jan. "You have one task. Deliver this file to Sophia. She's in the hospital. Tell her the sky is about to fall. She needs to bring it to the world." Ali Jan asked in a trembling voice, "But where will you go?" "I am going to complete the work I promised to do, bringing justice into the light." After Ali Jan departed, Traoré straightened his uniform, bandaged his wounds, and began walking toward the mountain path. The icy wind cut across his face, but there was not a trace of hesitation in his steps. Morris said softly, "We are not three, we are an entire nation, sir. The world will think you've disappeared, but the truth is you are about to emerge into the open." Traoré smiled. The time has come for the truth hidden in darkness to speak in the light of day. At that moment, the sound of helicopter blades thundered across the sky. The enemy forces had caught up with them. Traoré looked up and said, "Now the war has truly begun, but this time the battlefield is not the border, it is conscience itself." Snow was falling, the flash of gunfire flickered in the air, and history was preparing to write a new page. In the final hours of night, Tashkent's hospital was submerged in silence. Cold wind struck the closed windows, creating whistling sounds. Sofia Karamova lay in her bed, half awake, with those words still echoing in her ears from the masked man the previous night. "This file will change the world. Bring it to the sun." In her hand was that small USB drive that Ibrahim Traoré had risked his life to extract from the factory. It contained secrets that could expose powerful nations, military contractors, and intelligence agencies. Suddenly, the sound of footsteps came from outside. Sophia became alert. Two Uzbek intelligence officers stopped outside her room. "Make sure this woman doesn't escape. If she has the drive, everything is finished." Sophia's heart began pounding. She pulled out an old tray from under the bed, hid the drive inside it, and slipped it into her shoe. When the officers entered, she closed her eyes and pretended to be unconscious. "She's still unconscious," one said. "All right, transfer her to another ward," ordered the other. Just as they began pushing the bed, suddenly the electricity cut out. The entire hospital plunged into darkness. Sophia's eyes snapped open. She jumped from the bed and ran into the corridor. Gunshots rang out behind her, but she didn't look back. Her footsteps echoed through the deserted hallways. She escaped through the back door and disappeared into the cold night. Outside, a car was waiting. Ali Jan was the driver. "Let's go, we're running out of time," he said. Sophia asked in a trembling voice, "Is Traoré alive?" Ali Jan replied softly, "Yes, he's across the border. He said the sky is about to fall, you must lift it up." The car began speeding through the snowy roads. Sophia's eyes were fixed on the drive. "This is not just a file," she whispered. "This is humanity's trial." 2 hours later, they reached an old radio station where Nuruddin Bek, an independent Uzbek journalist who had been imprisoned for writing the truth, was waiting for them. "Are you certain this is the evidence the world is searching for?" he asked. Sophia nodded firmly. "Yes, this is not the crime of just one nation, it is the crime of the entire system." Nuruddin opened his laptop. Sophia inserted the USB. Multiple folders appeared on the screen. Project Tundra, Operation Sunbelt, Black Eagle contracts. Each folder contained thousands of classified records. Nuruddin's eyes widened. "This is the world's largest arms trafficking report. These people are operating under the United Nations banner." Sophia said in a resolute voice, "Upload it now, to every media network, every platform. Nothing can stop it now." The upload began. 1%, 5%, 25%. Suddenly, the server stopped. "They're tracing our signal," Nuruddin panicked. Sophia picked up a gun and moved toward the window. Outside, sirens began wailing. "Stay calm," she commanded. Complete the upload. If I don't survive, at least the world will awaken. Nuruddin's hands were shaking, but he kept working. 75%, 90%. The door burst open. Armed officers stormed inside. Sophia fired 3 shots. Then a bullet struck her shoulder. She didn't look back. Nuruddin, is it uploaded? Yes, the world is watching. On the screen appeared the message, upload complete, file publicly released. Simultaneously, videos began spreading across the entire world. Every channel, every social media platform carried the same headline. Ibrahim Traoré's secret mission exposes global corruption. Sophia collapsed to the floor, wounded but with a peaceful smile on her lips. I kept my promise, Ibrahim, she whispered. Sunlight streamed through the window, as if the sun itself had become a witness to this truth. At that moment on the streets of Burkina Faso, people flooded out by the thousands. Chants echoed everywhere. Traoré is alive. Traoré has returned justice. The world, which had been asleep, suddenly awoke with a jolt. It was 6:00 a.m. Every news channel around the globe was running the same headline. Secret files leaked. Global arms network exposed. The videos showed clear evidence. High-ranking military officials, representatives of international companies, and even diplomats from major powers, all were implicated. The recordings showed them making deals, creating false agreements, and profiting from wars in innocent nations. People took to the streets everywhere: Burkina Faso, Nigeria, Egypt, Pakistan, Indonesia, Turkey. Demonstrations erupted across continents. Crowds chanted, "We don't want war, we want justice. Traoré is the only leader who speaks the truth." Emergency meetings were called in Western capitals. At the United Nations headquarters in New York, the entire hall was filled with tension. Some diplomats were shouting, others were hiding their papers. A Western representative yelled, "This African president has become a threat to our system. He must be arrested." But the African Union representative took the microphone and spoke in a calm but powerful voice. When the world's powerful commit crimes, the one who stops them is not called a criminal. He is called human. That same evening, national television in Burkina Faso suddenly went dark. A few moments later, a blurry image appeared on screens across the nation. The face was wounded, but the smile was intact. It was Ibrahim Traoré. His voice carried that same steadiness and peace, like the calm that emerges in the sky after a storm. "My beloved people," he began, "I am alive, but this fight is not about my survival, it is about the survival of truth. We have exposed the hands that destroyed our lands to fill their treasuries. The time has come for the world to understand. Africa is not a slave, Africa is a protector." His message was not limited to Burkina Faso. On YouTube, Facebook, and news channels worldwide, his video was shared millions of times. Western media gave it a name: The African Lion's Return. That night outside the United Nations building in New York, thousands gathered. Their signs read, "Justice for Traoré. Truth is not a crime. One world, one humanity." But the anger of powerful nations continued to grow. In a secret meeting between the United States, France, and Britain, a decision was made. Ibrahim Traoré would be declared guilty of global military rebellion. False charges were filed claiming he was interfering with the United Nations system through covert networks. When Sofia Karamova, now in a secret safe house in Tashkent, heard this news, she told her companion Nuruddin, "They don't fear justice, they fear truth." Nuruddin replied, "But the world has changed now. Everyone knows that a leader who risks his life to speak truth is not a threat, he is a light." At that moment, an unknown number sent a message to Sofia's phone. "I am returning, prepare yourself." It was from Traoré. The next morning, thousands gathered at Burkina Faso's airport. Every eye was fixed on the sky, searching for that one plane. Through white smoke and clouds, a military aircraft began its descent. As the door opened, that same figure emerged, shoulders bearing the marks of wounds, but his face radiating peace and certainty. The entire crowd roared as one, "Long live Traoré, long live the truth." He raised his hand, signaling for silence, and spoke. "Our land will no longer be ruled by another's hand. Now justice will speak in our voice, and if the world cannot tolerate truth, we will show it again and again." These words were inscribed in history. On that day, the world witnessed that power does not come from guns, it comes from faith. And a leader who stands with faith casts a shadow that remains over his people for centuries. At the hospital, Sophia's face showed worry. Then we must warn him, but every route across the border is blocked. We'll have to send him a message via radio signal. They turned on the transmitter. Through the noise-filled frequency, Nureddin began speaking in code. Lion Echo 2, this is for you. The enemy is advancing under the UN flag. Stay alert. Then Sophia took the microphone. Her voice was weak but filled with passion. Ibrahim, if you can hear this, know this. Those who try to suppress truth will tire, but we will not. Do you promise that truth will never end? A few seconds later, that familiar voice emerged from the radio. I promise, Sophia, truth does not end, it only changes form. A smile appeared on Sophia's lips. Now I can die in peace. But before her words were complete, the sound of an explosion thundered outside. Window glass shattered. The enemy had found their location. Nureddin shouted, they've arrived. Sophia quickly handed a small file to Nureddin. These are my final pieces of evidence. Deliver them to Traoré, and if I don't survive, tell the world I was not afraid. The enemy had entered the building. The sound of gunfire filled the entire station. Sophia picked up her weapon for the last time. I am not just a soldier, I am a witness, and witnesses never remain silent. A bullet struck her chest, then another, but before falling, she pulled the grenade pin. The explosion shook the entire building. When Ibrahim Traoré received the news in Burkina Faso the next morning, he stood silent for a long time. Then he spoke softly. She is gone, but her name will now be written in history as the woman who awakened the conscience of nations. News channels worldwide carried breaking news. Uzbekistan, Ibrahim Traoré's ally Sofia Karamova martyred in crossfire, but her evidence breaks global conspiracy. Traoré addressed the nation. They think sacrifice silences voices. No, Sophia's voice will now live in millions of breaths. Those who fall on the path of truth do not die. They become seeds planted in the earth's heart, and they grow. After that day, the world learned a new phrase, Sophia's silence, meaning truth that does not hide even after giving one's life. Sophia's martyrdom shook the world's conscience. In Burkina Faso's capital, millions participated in her funeral procession. On every street, every square, her picture was displayed with the words, "Truth never dies." After the funeral, Ibrahim Traoré himself approached the coffin. Tears filled his eyes, but his face showed unwavering resolve. Sophia has completed her work. Now the responsibility to awaken the world rests with us. That same evening, a secret message was sent to the United Nations. I will speak, and this time, the entire world will listen. 2 days later, the United Nations General Assembly Hall in New York was packed to capacity. Nearly every nation was present. Outside, hundreds of reporters, live cameras, and social media streams were active. This was the moment everyone had been waiting for, Ibrahim Traoré's global address. When he stepped onto the stage, the entire hall rose to its feet, some out of respect, others out of fear. He took the microphone and spoke in a calm voice. I am not here for power, not for politics, only for humanity. Complete silence filled the hall. The world's powerful nations have always committed injustice in the name of justice. We trusted their words, but their actions burned the earth. Sofia Karamova proved with her life that truth cannot be killed by bullets. Today I announce the beginning of a new era. He pulled out a document from his pocket, the new Global Justice Declaration. From today, Burkina Faso will create a platform where no powerful country, no military contractor, no secret agency will be above accountability. We name it Ittihad Zamir, the Alliance of Conscience. Commotion erupted in the hall. The American ambassador grabbed the microphone and said sarcastically, "This is a dream, President Traoré. The world doesn't change like this." Traoré replied calmly, "The world has never changed by itself. Someone always dreamed first, and then they changed it." Then he played a video, Sophia's final message. Truth is never alone. Someone just has to pick it up. These words echoed through the hall. Several representatives stood up, some with tears in their eyes. Traoré continued, We are not enemies of the West or the East. We only stand with humanity. We are the race that emerged from the wounds of slavery. But now we raise the flag against that very slavery. And if my words are a crime, I will commit this crime again and again. The entire world was watching the live broadcast. Millions watched from their homes. A single voice had united humanity's scattered conscience. After his speech, Traoré didn't return to his hotel. Instead, he went directly to a small cafe near the United Nations building where ordinary people, workers, students, immigrants, had gathered. A young African student approached him with tears in his eyes. "Sir, you have given us hope, but will the powerful nations allow this alliance to exist?" Traoré placed his hand on the student's shoulder. "My son, when Moses raised his staff, Pharaoh also asked the same question, but the sea parted not by Pharaoh's permission, but by faith's power." That night, representatives from 47 nations, mostly from Africa, Asia, and Latin America, signed the Alliance of Conscience Charter in a secret ceremony. They pledged to expose military corruption, hold war profiteers accountable, and create a transparent international justice system. But powerful nations were not sitting idle. 3 weeks after the UN speech, intelligence reports reached Burkina Faso's presidential palace. A covert operation was being planned to eliminate Traoré and dismantle the Alliance of Conscience before it could take root. Captain Morris burst into Traoré's office. "Sir, we've intercepted communications. They're planning an assassination during your visit to Kenya next week." Traoré remained calm, studying a map on his desk. "Morris, a leader who fears death, has already died. We will go to Kenya as planned." "But, sir—" "No buts, Captain. If I hide from death, how can I ask my people to stand for truth?" The news leaked to the media. International pressure mounted on the conspiracy planners. Civil society organizations, human rights groups, and millions of ordinary people launched the Protect Traoré campaign on social media. In Tashk, at Sophia's grave, an old woman placed flowers and whispered, "Your sacrifice was not in vain, daughter. The world is changing." Nairobi, Kenya. The sun rose over a stadium filled with 80,000 people. Security was unprecedented. Kenyan forces, alliance members, and volunteer citizens formed protective rings around the venue. When Traoré's motorcade arrived, the crowd erupted in chants. "Africa united, truth united." He stepped onto the stage, and the entire stadium fell silent. "Brothers and sisters," he began, "they wanted to silence me in Uzbekistan. They wanted to bury truth with Sophia. They want to kill this alliance before it breathes. But they forget one thing: truth is not a person. Truth is an idea, and ideas cannot be killed." He raised his hand, and a giant screen behind him lit up with faces, hundreds of them. These are the people Sophia's evidence exposed: arms dealers, corrupt officials, war profiteers. Today we submit these names to the International Criminal Court. Today we say no more. The crowd roared. "But we don't just fight with documents. We fight with action. Today, I announce the establishment of the African Continental Defense University, where our youth will learn not to be mercenaries for foreign wars, but protectors of our own dignity." The applause was deafening. Suddenly, commotion erupted at the stadium's edge. Security forces rushed toward a suspicious individual. But before panic could spread, Traoré's voice boomed through the speakers. "Do not fear. Fear is their weapon. We have something stronger: unity." The suspicious individual was apprehended. It was a journalist trying to break through security for an interview, not an assassin. The crowd laughed with relief. Traoré smiled. "See, sometimes the enemy is just our own fear." Months passed. The Alliance of Conscience grew stronger. 12 more nations joined. International corporations began facing real accountability. War zones in 3 African nations saw ceasefires as the alliance mediated. But Traoré paid a heavy price. His family received constant threats. His children couldn't attend school normally. His wife, Miriam, often found herself staring at his empty chair at dinner, wondering if he would return. One night she confronted him. "Ibrahim, I'm proud of what you're doing, but our children ask me every night, 'Will Papa come home?' What should I tell them?" Traoré held her hands. "Tell them their father is building a world where they won't have to ask that question about their own children." Tears rolled down Miriam's cheeks. "And if you don't survive?" Then they'll know their father died trying, and that's a legacy worth living for. 6 months after Sophia's death, Nureddin Bek, the journalist who had helped her, managed to escape to France. He carried one final piece of evidence, a recording of a secret meeting where officials from 5 major powers discussed neutralizing the African alliance. He released it to the media. The world exploded in outrage. Protests erupted in London, Paris, Washington, and Berlin. Citizens demanded their governments explain why they were plotting against a peace initiative. The UN Security Council was forced to hold an emergency session. For the first time in history, the accused nations faced real scrutiny. Traoré addressed the session via video link. "We don't seek revenge, we seek recognition. Recognition that our lives matter, that our children's futures matter, that our continent's resources belong to us, not to your corporation's balance sheets." A British diplomat interrupted. "You're destabilizing the international order." Traoré's response was swift. "No, sir, we're exposing how your order was built on our graves. There's a difference." The session ended in deadlock, but the message had been delivered. A year after Sophia's martyrdom, a university was established in Tashkent in her name, the Sofia Karamova Institute for Justice and Human Rights. The Uzbek government, under international pressure and inspired by citizen movements, officially recognized her sacrifice. At the opening ceremony, her elderly mother spoke with a trembling but proud voice. "My daughter could have lived a comfortable life. She was beautiful, successful, respected, but she chose truth over comfort. I wept when I lost her. But today I see thousands of daughters and sons following her path. My tears have turned into pride." Traoré attended the ceremony. He placed a medal on Sophia's portrait, the alliance of conscience's highest honor, the shield of truth. "Sophia," he said softly, "you asked if I promised that truth would never end. Today I renew that promise. Your sacrifice lit a fire that will never extinguish." 2 years after the Uzbekistan mission, Ibrahim Traoré stood at the African Union Summit in Addis Ababa. The Alliance of Conscience had grown to 68 member nations. Real change was visible. Military corruption prosecutions had increased by 400%. 3 major arms-dealing networks had been dismantled. African nations had collectively renegotiated resource contracts worth billions. Youth employment in conflict zones had risen by 60%. But Traoré knew the fight was far from over. "We've won battles," he told the assembly, "but not the war. The forces we oppose have centuries of practice in domination. We have only years of unity, but history shows that decades of unity can defeat centuries of oppression." He paused, looking at the faces of leaders, young activists, and ordinary citizens who had gathered. "Some call me the Lion of Africa, but I am not a lion. I am simply a man who refused to be silent. The real lions are you, everyone who speaks truth in their homes, their workplaces, their communities. You are the pride, and together we are unstoppable." The hall erupted in applause that lasted 5 minutes. At a school in Ouagadougou, a teacher asked her students, "What did you learn from President Traoré's story?" A young girl raised her hand. "I learned that being powerful doesn't mean having weapons. It means having courage to speak truth." A boy added, "I learned that one person can change the world, but one person with a united people can change history." The teacher smiled, "And what will you do with these lessons?" The entire class responded in unison, "We will continue the work. We are the next alliance." Years later, historians would debate Ibrahim Traoré's legacy. Some called him a revolutionary, others a disruptor, still others a hero. But in small villages across Africa, in classrooms in Asia, in community centers in Latin America, people told a simpler story. Once there was a leader who could have chosen comfort but chose conscience, who could have chosen silence but chose to speak, who could have chosen safety but chose service. And in choosing, he reminded the world of a truth as old as humanity itself. That justice delayed is justice denied. That power unchecked is tyranny disguised. That one voice raised can awaken millions. Sofia Karamova's grave in Tashkent became a pilgrimage site. Every year on the anniversary of her death, people from around the world gathered to place flowers and renew their commitment to truth. And in Burkina Faso, on quiet evenings, children could be heard singing a new song. The lion roared, the world awoke, truth broke free from chains that choked. Sophia's light, Traoré's stand, justice lives when we join hand in hand. The alliance of conscience continues its work. The battles continue. The conspiracies continue. But so does hope. Because once people have tasted freedom, they can never again swallow slavery. Once they've heard truth, they can never again believe lies. And once they've seen what one determined soul can accomplish, they can never again claim helplessness. Ibrahim Traoré eventually returned to being a simple soldier, the role he always cherished most. He trained young officers, taught them that the greatest weapon is not in your hand but in your heart. And when asked about his legacy, he would smile and say, "I have no legacy. The people's awakening is the only legacy that matters. I was just fortunate enough to witness it." But the world knew better. History had recorded his name not in ink, but in the living breath of millions who learned to stand tall. And that, perhaps, is the truest immortality. The end. In memory of all who sacrificed for truth, in honor of all who continue the fight, in hope for all who will carry it forward. Author's note: this story is a work of fiction inspired by themes of courage, justice, and resistance against oppression. Any resemblance to actual events or persons is intended as tribute to those who stand for truth worldwide.